Thank you everyone for being here. I think it's a packed house, Mike and Mark, so you guys have a crowd pulling capacity. I think we all are excited to see having both Mike and Mark together here in Canada. This I think is one of the very first ones we are doing with both of you here, so welcome as in your new roles as Chairman and CEO of BASF Corp and President of North America. So before we get started with the questions, if you want to say a few words to address the crowd, I'll start with you, Mike.
Well, first of all, thank you very much for having me here. I mean, my role is not so new, but it's the first time that I had the opportunity now to come to Canada, which has been long overdue. I think we had a couple of times we tried to make it, but for some reason it really didn't happen. Just tell you a little bit about myself. So I was born as Michael, but I spent so much time abroad for BASF that it turned into Mike. So I started with BASF many moons ago, so 39 years ago, and BASF was the only company I ever worked for, and I have not regretted a single day, I have to tell you. And I have spent almost 20 years abroad in different capacities, 5 years in Latin America, so almost 15 years in the Americas, and I have been on the board of executive directors now in my 13th year. So, and right now I'm in charge of the Americas, so as a regional responsibility, and then of 3 of our 10 operating divisions, which is EN, EM, and then also Agricultural Solutions. And once again, I'm happy to be here and to hopefully get into a lively discussion.
So hi everyone, my name is Mark Earhart. I'm the president for the North American region. This is the second time I have the pleasure of having Mike as my direct supervisor. First when he promoted me to VP of Global Marketing Insecticides, and he sent me to 5.5 beautiful years in North Carolina. This is my 3rd rotation with BASF in the region. So I was first with the AP, then with BASF Plant Science, and in the end with the catalyst business in New Jersey. And it's the first time I'm based out of Florham Park. And part of my responsibilities as regional president is also to be responsible for this legal entity, which is BASF Canada. And that's where Apala reports directly to me. I am a German passport holder, but I grew up outside of Germany for the first 16 years of my life. I'm a 2nd generation expatriate. I only went home to Germany for my schooling when I was 16. After college, BASF hired me right off, and just like Mike, this has been my only employer if you exclude the Army, which in my days was still a compulsory service. And I'm really happy to be in the region the last 7.5 years. I've been in Germany, both as the head of corporate finance and as the president of global business services, and I'm really glad to be now here to be able to be in a very exciting region for BASF for the next couple of years. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike and Mark. So how we are going to do the fireside chat, we're going to ask you some questions, and then we're going to open it up for the audience. Please don't be shy. Harder questions go to Mike. No, Mark.
That's not what we said. We said the difficult questions go to Mark and the easy questions go to me, and you're supposed to steer him accordingly.
Exactly. Well, we start with Mark then. Yeah. So
here we go.
So Mark, the BASF stock has been a little bit underperforming, perhaps due to our exposure in Europe. So what levers do you think we need to pull, both short and medium term, to boost our confidence and our performance?
So the share price, and I think today we are slightly above 45 euros, is really not very encouraging. And it shows you that the market does not see our growth potential moving forward. And that is the problem. I mean, we are right now being viewed as very critically because of the disadvantages that our industry has, especially in Europe, you're right, with the price differential on energy prices and the sluggishness of the market over there. So investors are not so willing to buy into our equity story and seeing our clear path of growth moving forward. So that's also the lever that we all need to work on to improve our share price performance. If we can show a track record of growth, which we have not shown unfortunately the last 10 years, we will be rewarded by the market and seeing how our earnings and sales increase, and that will be reflected in our share price. And for those of us that are shareholders, will also benefit in our personal wealth.
Thank you, Mark. You don't want to add anything? That was a tough question already.
No, I mean, he said it perfectly. Why should I add anything?
Okay. Maybe the next question then goes to you.
And he's not supposed to add anything when I answer a question.
I got the message, Mike. I got the message.
Well, we heard the exciting news about the investment plan between BASF and Yara on the blue ammonia. It sends us a very strong signal to the market about us being pragmatic and serious about having low carbon solutions. What are some of the other areas in the value chains where we are targeting or seeing perhaps a demand for low carbon solutions?
Well, I think we should first frame it a little bit, and there I agree with Mark. I mean, right now we have a pretty rough spot for the chemical industry because we have low demand of durable goods, but that's not something that is happening only in Europe, that is happening all around the world. But at the same time, we are much more bullish about the future potential development in our region. And one of the recent announcements that we made was not an investment yet. We said we will analyze together with Yara a huge investment in an ammonia plant, which would be to the tune of around 2.4 billion. And the reason is that it's twofold. One, you have very cheap energy in comparison to Europe. And the second is the grants that you're being given in North America. So for every ton of CO2 that you're going to put into the ground, you're going to get a tax credit of $85. So what I've been saying always is that in Europe, what they try to do is they try to use the stick in order to change behavior of consumers and also of companies. And in North America, they use the carrot. So in other words, they will provide you with certain incentives in order for you to do the right thing. And that will open up opportunities for BASF, not just in the field of ammonia, but in many, many other things. So we are studying right now all the opportunities that would come along with either grants or tax type of credits that we could achieve. And I'm sure that down the road we will see more investments than just the announcement that we made together with Yara. I think the other possibility, and I think we should also stress that, is that obviously as free trade globally is retracting a little bit, there are opportunities in Canada and also in Mexico when we look at nearshoring of certain US type of future investments, and those are also opportunities that we should vigorously pursue.
Thank you, Mike. So all of you heard him. Yeah, we have to pursue those opportunities.
Always.
Go for it, yeah?
Don't wait for me to say it. Just do it.
We do it anyways. We have an entrepreneurial spirit. BASF Canada is a very, I would say, a powerhouse, and you agree with me?
I do.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's go, guys. So perhaps a question to both of you. BASF and the economy generally is going through a little bit of a tough time. Yeah, significant downturn we see. We can also see some of the markets kind of cooling off in Canada. In your opinion, what do we need to focus on right now to navigate these difficult times? And any sort of new opportunities you see in the horizon that we should pursue beyond what you talked about, the nearshoring?
I mean, first of all, there are always things that you cannot control. We cannot control interest rate.
Right.
We cannot control that consumers are investing in durable goods. So, I mean, there are a lot of things that are beyond our control. But there are still a lot of things that we can control. When you look at, I mean, how much money do we spend in CapEx, or what kind of discipline do we have? How are we looking over our costs? How are our inventories? How are our receivables? Those are all things that are pretty much in our control. And those are the things, and then what other, every crisis also brings about opportunities, and never waste a good crisis in order to think on what are some of the things that we could do differently in order to become more productive, more effective, all the other stuff, or what can we do in production in order to improve our asset effectiveness. So I mean, there are tons of things that we have under our control. And those are the things that we should focus on to say, okay, when the upswing comes, and eventually it comes, because for the time being, what we see is all around the globe a huge amount of destocking, with one exception, and that is pretty much automotive, because it's kind of, they have a little bit of an artificial restocking after the chips crisis, the wiring harness crisis. I mean, they need to fill in a little bit the channel, but everything else continues to destock. But that destocking eventually will come to an end. So once we then have a very solid type of base, nothing would be able to stop us.
Thank you, Matt.
I think that we really need to also identify and see the differences in the different stages of the businesses. If you look at the colleagues from AP, they're going to have a stellar year this year, right? So also, as the corporation as a whole sends messages from Ludwigshafen and through the divisions, we're at different stages. But one thing that rings true with everybody, and we had that at the last Global Executive Team meeting in June, is don't waste the opportunity.
Here we go.
To be in front of the customer also in this times. We're trying to control discretionary costs and really make sure that we don't spend funds that we don't have to spend. But one of the things where also clearly Martin Brudermüller said, don't save on customer-facing time that will lead to future business. And that goes to what Mike was saying. We have to be ready to beat out the competition when the demand comes back. And that's what we need to be investing now in the customer relationships, in having our ear on the ground, seeing those signs so that we don't jump the gun too early, because we've got an inventory issue right now. We need to work through that. We need to postpone certain expenditures to conserve cash as we move forward, but we need to be out there in the market and not go into hibernation and just look at our belly button.
Well said. So one of the things is that in Europe we see a stronger push towards renewables through the stronger regulations with the Green New Deal. What are the implications and also the opportunities you see we will have perhaps here in North America and especially in Canada?
I mean, over time, I mean, first of all, I think the Green Deal is a good thing, and the company also believes into this. What we always say is we are just trying to do too many things all at once. So we buy to this, but we say, I mean, some of that stuff, I mean, we will not be able to do within the time frame that you provided. Where we have a little bit of an issue is when it comes to the Green Deal is this shift more towards a hazard type of based approach, which is also shifting a little bit into some of the other regions. So I think what we will see down the road is we will see globally a convergence of some of the things that we are seeing right now in Europe. Some of the stuff we will continue, however, to fight, because I think when it comes in particular to risk versus hazard base, it makes a lot of sense and also scientific sense to continue to make strong arguments. Now, when it comes to BASF has always been, I think, on the forefront when it comes to sustainability, and not just when the word sustainability was invented, but basically since 1865 when we founded the company. I mean, the whole Verbund type of structure and philosophy is based on this sustainability type of thought, even though we never used we never had a work back then for what we were trying to achieve. And when you look also at, I mean, Canada is a good example when we look at Ziploc bag, for example, right? I mean, with Ziploc, where we have EcoVio and where we use this composable type of polymer. This is something that has started actually in Canada, and this is something that we are trying to replicate in North America. So you will always find areas and pockets of opportunities where, with the portfolio of BASF, we can have an edge, let's say, over competition. Also, when it comes to sustainability, whether it's our product line, whether it's our product carbon footprint that we are trying to sell, and where we come then into discussions with our customers of things that we could do down the road, and those are the opportunities that we also have to pursue.
Nothing to add.
Okay. Well, thank you both, and now we will open up the forum for questions.
And you should ask, I mean, you think about, you know, sometimes you're a little bit hesitant when you're in like a large group. Should I really raise my finger and ask a question? There are no stupid questions. There are only stupid answers. and they would come from the two of us. So you can relax, right? And you can ask anything you ever wanted to ask because Mark will answer all these questions.
All right. Who has the first question? It's hard to see, so.
Is this normally where you
Okay,
paid
back
like
there.
10 Canadian dollars to someone? And
Only 10?
That's a planted
maybe not
question.
enough.
Those are planted questions.
No, I'll take the first bit. Thanks for coming to Canada, and it's really interesting having you guys over here for all the answers. I was actually pretty interested in your previous town hall. You showed a chart that showed that BASF was actually lagging behind its competition, especially in terms of revenues, etc.
Yeah.
So my first question is, has that changed now that we are, 1 quarter past since then? And if not, has there been discussions like what should we be doing? Like why are we kind of lagging behind the competitors?
Well, it's a good question. I mean, and I'm glad you raised it, and Mark mentioned it also in one of his previous responses. What we have done, basically what we do every year is we have like a huge type of controlling report where we look at how has each business performed, let's say, in the environment it's in. And we came to realize that what we were lacking was really growth, because we always said like we want to ideally grow by about 2% above market growth. So, and when you look at it from an aggregate level, and I'm not saying now this holds true for each and every business, then we started to realize that over the last 10 years we have hardly grown. Now, it is really up to each individual business to go back and analyze this in detail and ask the question, what are some of the root causes why we did not achieve some of the growth that we should have achieved with the portfolio and above all with the people that we have. So, and there the key is really you have to know your markets, you have to know your competitors, and you have to gauge yourself on where you stand and what some opportunities, what some of those opportunities are. Now, we always had a little bit of a theory, yeah, which is that we didn't, as an aggregate once again, have this hunting spirit to go out for new type of opportunities, new businesses, emerging type of, young type of customers. And that is one of the reasons why we have not grown. But once again, this is helicopter view looking in aggregate over all of the businesses. It would have to be analyzed much deeper by each business. But that was our request, that each business just takes a look at this and says, and hopefully not each business comes back and says like, it's them, it's not us. So sometimes we have to be also face this brutal truth and then ask ourselves, what are some of the things that we can do in order to improve going forward?
Thanks so much.
Hi, my question's around our Scope 1 and Scope 2 emissions progress. How are we doing as a company against those? I think a milestone's around the corner. And then the second part of the question is Scope 3 beyond the product carbon footprint also on the radar?
Want me to get started? I mean, first of all, I think when you look at our targets, which is basically zero-free emissions by 2050, but then also a 25% reduction by 2030, then I can say we are doing really well when it comes to the 25% reduction. And that kind of makes a lot of sense because we have been investing heavily in PPAs and green energy. Like in Europe, we took an equity stake in what is going to be the largest wind park in Europe. So, I mean, those are these low-hanging type of fruits. So we will achieve that target. There is no doubt in my mind. After 2030, it's going to get a little bit more challenging. And there, what we do is we are aggregating all ideas right now. Some of them are also related, let's say, to new technologies that still have to prove that they are economical. And then we have to decide at some point in time within that portfolio, where do we want to be the front runner, even if it's not economical yet? Or where do we rather wait until the consumer is willing to pay for it, for example? Or the technology, we are 100% sure that the technology will work. So that's the first part of the question. And then the second part of the question, Scope 3 is around the corner. And while we focus right now on Scope 1 and Scope 2, either we ourselves will be much more active on Scope 3. I mean, we already report on it, but we don't really focus that much on it, or somebody else will enforce it on us.
Hi, I'm Mariana. I'm actually in the sustainability team, so I'm going to ask another sustainability-related question. I just want to narrow it more. How do you see BASF Canada contributing to the global sustainability strategy?
I hope that each country around the world contributes to our sustainability strategy, because at the end of the day, in order to achieve that target, that cannot just be based, let's say, on North America or on Europe, but on each individual country. However, obviously, when you look at the footprint that we have, right? Let's say when it comes to CO2 emissions, then it is much stronger in North America, it is much stronger in Europe, right? I mean, in Europe, in Germany alone, you talk about 8 million tons of CO2 out of the 21 million tons that we are trying to get rid of. So from a production, let's say, scope reduction, it's a much more challenging target, let's say, in these areas where we have large Verbund sites, which does not mean that in areas where we are close to our customers, and that is in each market around the globe, we cannot help them to reduce their CO2 emissions with the portfolio, with some of the offerings that we have. So I hope, like I said, independent on whether you have a large asset footprint or a smaller asset footprint, that all countries around the globe are actively contributing to the sustainability targets that we and ultimately also our customers have.
Thank you.
I'm Lorna Luján, BASF Canada Innovation Strategic Partner Leader, and I wanted to know if you could share some insights on how innovative partnerships such as startups, universities, or research institutions have contributed and can keep contributing to our innovative advantage, competitive advantage.
Well, you see that GR has a lot of or RG, sorry. RG has a lot of collaborations to tap into the North American brain trust, if you so will. Mm-hmm. And if you see the NORA Alliance in the East, so that comes time and time again. And if you also see our younger businesses, such as battery materials, they start off with a lot of partnerships to try to figure out how they're going to do their technology base. And we've done that, if you look back even further. If you look at how we did that in BASF Plant Science for a decade and a half, trying to close the breach towards what others in the industry were doing, that was very strongly based out of university collaborations and transferring that into the commercial setting with us. There's also then an offshoot. If you look at the BASF Venture Capital, that's a different approach in trying to get through the door as being an investor into certain startups. There I'm a little bit more critical because since it's an institution, it's a nice idea, but we've not had any home run coming out of that up until now. So from that perspective, BASF thrives out of the collaborations at the research level, and in the past we will also have very big divisional R&D setups partnering in their industry-specific areas of focus, and out of that generating a model to either in-license or even further technical innovations in their field.
Thank you. We are definitely working very closely with Nora and Tom Holcomb to try to leverage that network.
Exactly.
Bonjour, thank you for coming to Canada. My name is Zarif. I'm part of the supplier and reporting team in GB. My question was more on the battery material investment side. Stellantis and Volkswagen have both announced multi-billion-dollar investments in Ontario for electric vehicles, and I know we have an opportunity in Bécancour. I just wanted to ask, how committed is the board to driving through that investment in Ontario or Quebec in new cathode active materials and other battery-related investments?
The board is committed to long-term prosperous type of growth wherever it happens, right? And in Canada as well as in North America, as in the US, you have a lot of investments going into battery materials, and we have to then weigh at the end of the day. I mean, you have limited funds available, and you're going to direct those limited funds towards where you think you have the best growth potential and the highest potential return. So when you say, are we committed to an investment? Yes, in these areas. Do we know 100% where it's going to be yet? No. But be rest assured, we don't roll a dice. What we do is we do tons of analysis, probably, as a German company, more analysis that you really want to do. And then at the end of the day, we will decide based on facts, not based on emotions.
Yeah. But I think also going to your question, the Canadian team is doing an excellent job at selling the investment opportunity in Canada. If you look at what Apala and how Apala is out there beating the bushes on behalf of CCB to try to generate the framework conditions, that would actually make the rational assessment from the project team swear towards a Canadian investment. Because that's, and in an earlier session, Mike said it, every site and every legal entity needs to fight for the limited resources that we out there. And you guys can rest assured that at least your legal entity management is doing an excellent job in making sure that an investment in Canada looks well towards the operating division.
And then you would always say, why are the resources limited? Well, I mean, think about it in your personal life. You have to make also decisions based on limited resources at the end of the day. And I don't want to be in a situation within BASF where resources are unlimited. When resources are unlimited, then you make decisions, but then you would make certain marginal projects still go, rather than really focusing on the ones that are meaningful for the company going forward.
All right, thank you.
So Zarif, just to add to it, I mean, the IRA fundamentally changed the landscape, right? So we now, Volkswagen, LG, Stellantis, if you look at their announcements, LG Stellantis stopped constructing. They had to go back to the government and renegotiate, which means that the deal framework is different now from when we announced it in Bécancour. So we have to do our due diligence for the aspects that Mike and Mark mentioned about making sure that the investments are in the right framework and we actually have the growth and we don't waste our precious dollars.
And these investments are big. So it's not like a double-digit type of, these are big triple-digit type of investments.
Hey, a question for you. My name is Steve Kianza, working in HR. A bit more of a personal question for you, if that's okay.
For me or for him?
Both of you.
Oh, yeah.
Both. So personal question is, so I work in HR. We talk a lot about leadership development, people getting into roles, being at BASF, you mentioned, for 39 years, quite some time. Can you talk about your journey in terms of just the roles you've taken on, to get to this point, right? Not many of us have an opportunity to be in front of, CEO, chairman, right, president. Not many of us, if you look at the population, will get into those positions. Could you just talk about your personal journey, your aspirations?
Sure.
What kind of got you to this point? Just both of you, that'd be great.
Yeah. I mean, first of all, I think when I look at my development within BASF, then I always wanted to win. But I did not want to win at the cost of, let's say, others. So I always was very ambitious without having too many ambitions. Now that might sound a little strange to you, but what I mean was that I was always focused 125% at the job that I was doing. And I really wanted to do that job very, very well. And I did not focus on what comes next and next and next. Now, and I was a little bit naive also by always getting out of my comfort zone. And you can be rest assured that if someone tells you along your career that this is a job that you can easily do, you have probably reached the end of your career. You should always assume a job where you're not 100% ready for yet. So, and I always went out of that comfort zone, right? I mean, let's say I went to Latin America, I didn't speak a word of Spanish. I think the first couple of things I signed, I still have no clue what this was all about. totally out of the comfort zone. I went from marketing into planning and controlling, totally out of my comfort zone. So those were always the things that I tried to pursue, kind of grow as an individual by getting out of the comfort zone. And then probably the other thing is, if I were to divide this room into two parts, and I would say all the ones who are doing a really good job to the left, and all the ones, pardon my language, who are doing a shitty job to the right. How many people would I find actually on the right side? No one. Hopefully no one. Because everyone believes that they're doing a good job. And I believe everyone is doing a good job. But the difference between good and great is that you do what's not necessarily expected of you. So get out of the comfort zone, do not what is expected within the legal framework and compliance laws and stuff like that, obviously. But because if you always do what is being expected of you, honestly, we can find a lot of people who do that. So if you combine this, getting out of the comfort zone, doing what's not expected of you, that will make the difference. And I think that has made the difference in my life.
Let me start by saying that everyone can contribute at BASF. And we can all do our part to make our company great. Now, that means it's also different for everybody, and that's okay. We just need to find what each and every one likes to do and is passionate about, so that that passion translates to the delivery of whatever you do. You can be a single contributor, you could be a subject matter expert, you could be a generalist, you can be a people manager. And just find that space where you are at your best, and that's our job as senior managers, to create the environment so that you can be at your best. And then it comes what aspiration you have. Where do you want to take it? And that's different for everyone at different stages in your life. You know, you say, no, right now I'm not mobile. Maybe tomorrow I'm mobile. Right now I want to manage people. No, maybe now I want to be a single contributor. Because then as the pyramid goes up, and that's what I always tell talents is like, are you sure you want to be a people manager in Ascent? Because leadership is also a burden. And you have to be willing to sacrifice. And then if you want to go further and say, I want to be a senior executive, that's a lot more sacrifice. You heard Mike said how many times he moved, you know, how many times I have moved. And you're always talking about, you know, in his case, it's a family of 5, and my case is a family of 4. You know, it's sacrifice. But in the end, you need to be happy. Because only if you're happy, you're motivated, passionate, and you see the positive energy, and that transcends to your team and to your colleagues. So from that perspective, find your spot, because we all have a place and we can all contribute positively at BASF.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense, right? Everyone can't be a CEO, right? Everyone needs to have their role and find the right fit. Second question was, talk about your experience in Canada. Any past experiences in Canada? Are familiar with the landscape? I guess Toronto, Ottawa, Calgary. Talk about your experience in Canada.
First, I have a daughter that's studying in Canada, in Toronto. So 2 years ago...
I have one too who studied in Canada. Damn. Toronto.
Okay, let me see what other countries.
It's not the same one, by the way.
So my first experience with Canada is funny. It was with the North American leadership team when they had a meeting here, and we actually stayed at a Trump hotel in downtown. So Carlos Navarro was the managing director here, so that was my first experience with BASF Canada. And since then, I was also here in my role as Global Business Services Head, and this is now the third time as president for the region. And what you have, you know, it's one of those, if you look at, we still have over 3 billion in sales. And that's, I think, one of the things that we sometimes underestimate at BASF, how big BASF Canada as a legal entity is. Yes, it has a very strong skew towards AP, I get it, you know, but it is a big legal entity, you know, and it is complemented with some classical BASF businesses like PM, CI, EC, but it is a very big country if you look at it from that perspective.
So coming back again, my daughter, she studied 6 months in Toronto law. Unfortunately, it was exactly when COVID broke out, so it was not a good experience for her. I had my first experience with Canada when I was a product manager for Care Chemicals in North America, an assistant product manager. We came quite frequently up to Canada. There was a German delegate by the name of Andy. I don't recall his last name too long ago. And he actually had Care Chemicals and also the chemicals. I mean, so you can imagine how small Canada was back then. Then my second, what? Exactly. Very knowledgeable type of guy, pleasant individual. So that was my first encounter. And then I was in charge of marketing for the US, for the ag business in Raleigh, North Carolina, and the Canadian team was part of the management team, and we also frequently went up. Then I became the president of AP, and then I was also quite frequently in Canada, visiting the team. I was with our green biotech type of team once in Canada. And today, as I'm reassumed the responsibility for AP on the board, as Mark has mentioned, I mean, Canada for us, when you look at canola, is a big and very important franchise within what is the crown jewel within the portfolio of BASF.
Thank you.
Mike, Mark, really great to have you here. Thanks for joining us. I'm Peter Halder. I'm from the GB unit here. So it's a different question. I mean, we talked a lot about business, external impact as well. But as a support function from GB side, what do you think our approach and mindset really needs to be to enable our operating divisions to really do the best for productivity and growth? Maybe more for Mark as you come out of GB.
Sure.
Well, I have a vested interest, right?
I always like this. Maybe you give the example on the color, the yellow and the red. I always use that. I always like that when you remember?
Which one?
Well, then maybe I go first.
Yeah, you go first.
Actually, I have stolen this from him, so I liked it so much. The philosophy of BASF in the past was pretty much everyone gets the same type of service. So it was based on you're part of a fitness studio, and whether you use the sauna or not, you're going to pay the same price. At the same time, when some of our operating divisions came to our services, back then we called them functions, and said, we want to have a slightly different, then they said, sorry, I mean, we're not offering a whirlpool. We only have the sauna. So, and then the philosophy changed, I mean, so basically the businesses, they used to come and they said, we want red. And then the services said, we only have yellow. And that has changed now. They come and say, we want red. And then the services should always say, based on our experience, based on everything we can tell you, you should use yellow. But if you really want red, and if you're willing to pay for red, then you should get red. And that has really changed the philosophy a little bit. And there you can help the business, again, by saying, based on our experience, it should be yellow. But at the same time, as a service organization, then do the best thing that you can do to adhere, to fulfill their wish, basically, to get the red. That is the example that you always, right?
Thank you. Yeah, that's right. That's always what you can tell.
So if you can invent it yourself, invent it. If you cannot invent it, steal it. So I stole it from him.
No, but why are we doing this? I mean, we've gone through this transition and going to the 4 dedicated service providers because in the end, after the last corporate strategy, the big question is, why are we not growing? And then the board of executive directors went around and said, division heads, why are we not growing? One of the things that kept coming up is, well, the functions are blocking us, right? They're not service oriented. And the board said, okay, Mark, Christoph, turn around, you're no longer functions, you no longer have governance, make sure you align optimally and offer what the business need to grow. And that's what we did. And I think that is, if we are in that mindset, and this is one of the things that I'm seeing with the GB units and the legal entities, it's a different dialogue now. you know, and it has to be an informed dialogue about sometimes people want, you know, red where they actually should want yellow, but if they're carrying their responsibility and they're responsible.
To remember again.
Yeah. They carry their responsibility. Well, you know, as long as it doesn't go back then to the service provider, well, we told you, we gave you full transparency, you still wanted to go that route? Sure. Now carry the consequences, right? And that's where I think we have a super opportunity now that we've gone through the transition to really keep on that, because you remember our slogan, we understand, you know, and really being proud of your services, because you know what you contribute to the greater good of BASF, because we can't all be sales folks, you know, somebody needs to do the accounting in the background.
Thanks, Peter.
Good afternoon. Dominique Piosvat, Business Development Manager and CX Lead for BASF Canada. My question to you was to follow up on your previous point when you said that the economy eventually will turn around and we have to be as ready as possible for when that happens. So obviously there are several ways to improve our readiness. We can improve our R&D, we can improve our production capabilities, we can improve our customer centricity, or invest in our people to have people more passionate about their function and their contribution. So my question is, which are the main focus for BASF globally to improve our readiness?
You know, this is like, you know, tell me which criteria it is to buy a share, for example, on the stock market. Are you just looking at book to price value, price earning? Are you looking at the dividends? At the end of the day, you cannot say it's just one piece. I think you stated it perfectly. Those are the things that we need to focus on. And above all, I think what I really like was at the end, because it's something that we did not mention, which is to energize our people and make sure that they are passionate about what they do. And the contribution that we can do, let's say from the board, is just to say, where does the company would like to go? What is our trajectory? What is our vision? How we would like to get there? And then we need you in order to get it done. And because we were, honestly, I mean, when it comes to, let's say, confidence in the board, when we look at the last feedback forward, employee voices type of results, was not necessarily very encouraging, right? So, which means that we have to listen more to people and also to explain a little more on where we would like to go and make them believe that this is really the trajectory that we should pursue, and has a lot to do with passion.
And if I may, because Mike brought about employee voices. So first of all, thank you to everybody that participated in employee voices. It is something that we really use and listen to. So thank you very much. I think the participation rate also here in Canada was extremely high. And also, even though we're a little bit disappointed globally about the drop in employee engagement down to 78, in the Americas, we're actually trending upwards. So also thank you there for that feedback and moving forward. And rest assured that we are really looking into the result to listen and see, and we will incentivize managers and legal entity heads to really discuss with you what the specifics are in your microcosm, because that's where we get the best feedback, is when teams say or are positive to the question, has something changed since the last time we asked you? And that was also an improvement here in BASF Canada. So thank you from that perspective, and also to be a little supportive of Mike. You can tell the Board of Executive Directors takes that feedback very seriously. To his defense, I think it's very much centered in a deep-rooted sentiment that we have right now in Europe, which nevertheless they have understood. To energize our people, we need to paint the picture as senior executives. What do we want to be in 2030? And I think that's going to be answered as we go into the next cycle of our corporate strategy that should begin sometime in the next 12 months.
Yes.
Thank you to both Mike and Mark for plugging in the employee voices. I think we take your feedback very seriously, and some of the areas of improvement we have acted upon based on the input. So appreciate all of you taking the time to do it. So in the next time, when you are hesitant of providing input, remember these two guys said that they listen to you also. Yeah. So this is important for us to continue to provide that input for the survey. That's one survey that really makes a difference. I can tell you that.
Hi, thank you very much for coming to visit us in Canada and for your support of our ERGs over the past year especially. Judy Finlayson, I'm from the legal and compliance team. And I just I wondered, given that DEI is such an important topic to Canadians in general and to us at BASF Canada, where you see us fitting within the DEI strategy for North America and how you think that we compare against our competitors.
Well, first of all, I think the room for improvement is the largest room in the world, particularly when it comes to DEI. And there is still a long way to go, but I think we have also made some progress over the years. And I think it has been because it was, in this particular case, believe it or not so much a top-down movement, but it was more a bottom-up movement. It was more that we had to listen really to our employees and just say, like, look, this is important to us. And it, I think, has accelerated also our belief in diversity, inclusion, and then a topic which is more prevalent in the Americas is really equity, which you don't find yet in other parts of the world. But that is also something which is a grassroots type of movement with which we are going to look much more also in other parts of the world to develop. And there's a clear belief that a diverse type of workforce is just a better workforce for a variety of reasons. I mean, it's an ethical thing, but it's also an economic thing, yeah? And that's why we will continue along that path. Like I said, we should never be satisfied with where we are. We should, once we don't talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion anymore, that is then when we have started to reach the states we can be satisfied with.
We had the ERG Summit as well in Florham Park, which both Mike and Mark were there. In Canada, we have 23% of employees being part of ERGs, so it's a very good story as well. You're yourself involved in the AVID. We have Sean Cameron and Mark Huseman, who's leading the REC. I think Canada is a great place where we actually have baked in that social engagement as well as the DEI topics all together. It makes a huge difference. And I would encourage the folks who are hesitant or on the fence of joining ERG, this is one way of your engagement, and you would learn more, perhaps get out of the comfort zone and experiment things and maybe learn about something else and about yourself. So I encourage you to continue to participate.
And I heard when I was in Mexico, the best ally is an ally that associates with a group that they normally don't belong to.
Exactly, exactly. So I'm the executive sponsor of AVID, and I come as an ally of the group that I think is important. We have marginalized and perhaps overlooked for decades.
Hi, Mark and Mike. Erica Harris over here. I'm part of our safety cluster in GB, and I'm also the chair for our Psychological Health and Safety Committee here in Canada. So my question is also going to be a bit of a personal one, and it kind of goes along with DEI. We've been working very hard over the last year and a half to embed psychological safety into our environment, health, and safety management systems. And kind of like what you just said in terms of ERG, there's a lot of power that comes with storytelling and sharing, especially with psychological safety. So I was wondering if you would be able to share maybe what your passions or hobbies are outside of BASF, and maybe what you do to cope with your mental health and well-being, because I can assume in your position you have some high stresses. So,
want to start?
No, you go ahead.
My passion is sports. I was a semi-professional water polo player, played on the German national team, and I still run a water polo club in Germany, even from the US. So I run it because a part of where I am today is rooted in me being a water polo player. So, and when it comes to how do I do this, right? I mean, I juggle 4 balls in my life. The first ball is out of crystal. That ball, if you drop it and it breaks or it scratches, it might be beyond repair. What ball is that?
Family.
It's family and friends. Second ball that I juggle, and that ball is out of rubber. That is actually what I do on the job and let's say my job performance. And why is it out of rubber? Because I was a division president in BASF who got the worst performance evaluation that a division president probably ever got. On a scale of P1 to P9, I got a P3. And I'm still a member of the board. So the third ball, and that is to me, that can be out of rubber or it can be out of glass, depending on what stage you are. That is for me movement and sports. So, and I do still a lot of sports, and it is all about discipline, right? I mean, if you really want to do it, you can do it. And then the fourth one, and that is the passion about, it's giving back to the community. That's also a ball out of rubber. You can always start with it. Now, very often, I approach people and I say, I want you to do something in my sports club. And then they say, oh, Mike, I don't have any time. You don't know what's going on in my life. And then I say, if you're really honest to yourself, then that's not the right answer. You just don't want to do it. Then they get all excited and agitated and say like, no, you don't know what's going on in my life. And then I'm like, listen, when you were in love for the first time, think about all the things that you did simultaneously. So all I want you to do is fall in love with I want you to do, and you will find the time to do it. Now on those juggling these 4 balls, is it always perfect? No. Do you constantly have to recalibrate it? Yes. But that's my passion, and that's how I deal with it.
Thank you so much. And Mark?
Well, I think we've now gone through a very, very difficult 3 years.
Don't say pickleball now.
No, well, I don't know if it's known, but I am the reigning pickleball champion of the North American leadership team, together with my partner.
We ran out of time. That's all I can say.
Brad Morrison, you know. I almost carried an LTI out of that match against Mike.
It's true.
So I think we've gone through 3 very difficult years that have been very challenging on mental health in our entire workforce and with our families. You know, if we look at the kids that lost really probably the best years of their high school experience and their elementary school experience, the colleagues that we've onboarded electronically, offboarded electronically because they never had those connections. So right now I'm very passionate about creating engagement with our employees through physical interactions. Mike's calls it casual collisions. And we're trying to generate those casual collisions so that we reconnect. We've been apart so long. And for instance, those of us that had global jobs, we didn't see our global teams for ages. You know, now we were in a positive situation if we had a previous relationship, but if you don't have a relationship, you have nothing to build on. And that's why we're here. That's why we're coming out and being there. So that right now is for me a very, very important part of generating enthusiasm in our company, and that's part of my role to come out. And on the personal side is of that mental health, as you correctly said. When I look at my kids, what kind of stresses they're exposed to right now because of the multitude of inputs that are available now that weren't there when I was, and just monitoring that and being able to help them through those difficult times in moving forward. I'm, as you can tell, I've moved around a lot. I'm a Latino at heart and a German by looks. And the issue is, you know, we need to let also our emotionality go a little bit. You know, we have a Latino household, so the more I love you, the more I shout. And it's just being there, and that's the important thing. When you have a high stress environment, you need to find that release. For me, the release is actually playing PS5 sometimes, just when I go into my own shell, because I just need time alone, right? As Mike, is the discipline, even if you don't want to, get up, do the 45 minutes of spinning, do your strength training. I don't have back problems anymore because as a young manager, I let that go, and I paid dearly for it because I was traveling a lot in bad airplane seats. I had back problems. That's all gone away. So you gotta measure yourself. You gotta know when to stop, when to delegate, when to let things go. You know, so that's.
And it's very individual, you know.
Yeah.
What to you might be stress, to me might be fun, or the other way around, you know. I mean, so you all have to find your own equilibrium, and you all have to find your own balls that you juggle, and how you define them, and constantly, and every now and then find this time of solitude, and recalibrate, because the world is not perfect by no means.
Very well said. Thank you to both. So unless there are any burning last questions, I say so there's one last burning one. Burning last question. Heather, you have the last question, and then
we have to have one that's sort of customer facing, right? So I'm Heather Coles. I'm an account manager with CP. In former lives, I've been with CI and EM as well. So I probably was in EM a little bit after you, Mike. My question is around the Net Promoter Score program. So we've been doing this program for 4 to 5 years now and spent a lot of resources throughout the organization implementing and maintaining it. How do you feel that program has resulted in the desired impact on our organization? And how do you see that program changing, morphing over the coming years to stay relevant and frankly interesting to our customers?
It has gotten a little bit more challenging, for sure. I mean, over the last couple of years, because all of us are a little bit feel this fatigue of constantly filling out, you know, type of forms and feedback, whether you fly, you rent a car, you go to a restaurant, you visit a soccer game. I mean, you get this all the time. Nonetheless, I think it really has helped us in 2018 when we said, let's be even more customer-centric to focus on 3 things. Implement Salesforce. I also think we're not at the end yet in terms of like using all the abilities that Salesforce provides. Customer networks, where I think we are doing a good job for the customer to take a look at BASF as a whole, or we take represent ourselves as a whole. We always had this belief that there would be a divide and conquer on the customer side if we come as one to the customer, which is really not true. And then the third was really Net Promoter Score and this Net Promoter System, where we have also started to recalibrate a little bit on how we are going forward in order to extract more meaningful type of data out of the data that we get. But yet, yes, it will probably remain a little bit challenging on the customer side to convince them, and we can only do that by actually responding with meaningful type of changes and also being open to our customers that everything you report to us, we can probably put into 3 buckets. One bucket we can solve like this, another bucket probably requires a little bit of resources, and a third bucket, you know what, that's not gonna change for a while, probably only until we re-hardwire our system in terms of, let's say, our current SAP R3 system. So also this honesty towards the customer, and then hopefully he sees that stuff is going on and he will continue to respond to our requests. But I think really that it has made us more customer-centric. I'm convinced of that, because wherever I go, we talk about it, and you just raising the question also tells me that this is also important in Canada.
Thank you.
Well, I think we can close the session now. So on behalf of the entire Canadian team, again, Mike and Mark, thanks for being here. thanks for answering all our questions.
Blinded by lights.
Blinded by lights. I did a fantastic job. Yeah. Well, round of applause for both of these gentlemen, please.